welcome to 3Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to be talking about NXT from July 19th, 2022. A decent episode of NXT. Actually, not bad. I enjoyed it. Got a nice little surprise at the end. Got some angles we cut. Just very chock full of actual stuff to talk about. Finally, for first time in a long time. It's something to talk about in a WWE show. But first, we got to do a note. So, apparently, Kevin Nash had a conversation with Shawn Michaels about why traditional wrestling just isn't the style anymore. And this is very interesting because I want to read the transcript, but the transcript doesn't tell me when this conversation actually occurred. So, it says, this is from Kevin Nash's Click This podcast. He says that Kevin Nash says that he went down to the Performance Center to watch an NXT taping. He says, quote, I went down and watched the NXT taping and I said to him, Shawn Michaels, I said, slow the fuck down, right? And he looks at me and just exactly how he said, he just looks at me and goes, it's not the style anymore. You just have to accept that. The style is the style. And I'm like, wow. Like he goes, if you go out there and do fucking tests of strength, people will walk the fuck out of the arena. He said that they are awkwardly conditioned now to do this. The fans want to see this. They want to see a spot fest. That's great. I mean, if that's what the fans want, I particularly don't. Now, interesting thing is, we don't say when this conversation occurred. He just said he went down to the Performance Center and this is what he saw. Well, Shawn Michaels has been down in the Performance Center for a long time now. You know, like we know he runs NXT now, you know, at least for the most part, in NXT UK. But he's been doing that for a while. Like he did it during the Black and Gold era. So when you look at the stylistically, especially if you watch this episode of NXT, I think you saw a lot more actual wrestling on this show than you probably did during the I'm talking traditional style that Kevin Nash will be talking about. Takedowns, you know, arm drags, you know, somebody grabbing a hold and working a hold. That kind of stuff, you actually see it a lot more now than you used to in the Black and Gold era. And if you look at, you know, and I'm not saying it wasn't there because, you know, certain guys did what they did. But when you look at the stuff people was going crazy for, a lot of it wasn't the traditional WWF style that these two guys will be talking about. And you know, that's an interesting evolution, or you know, it's a de-evolution in my opinion. You know, it's de-evolution ain't a mystery. It's a change that everybody saw, to be quite honest. But I think that they're trying to go back to traditional style. When you look at NXT 2.0, they're actually, you know, kids are trying to learn the basics. And why they don't have a Young Lions type of system, which they should have, where they limit the amount of moves these people can do so they can learn proper psychology and how to work a hold and all that kind of stuff. They don't need to know how to do flippity doo-dahs and all types of jumping bombs or whatever the hell. It's not really necessary. But I'm guessing that's what this was it was during the Black and Gold era, but you know, it could have also been through NXT 2.0 because there are still some people who work that indie style there too. Interestingly enough, when you talk about this style, it's not just the work from the wrestlers. You're also talking about the audience. That's the second piece of this comment that I thought was very interesting. Is that Shawn basically says, look, if you do it the style the way we used to do it, you know, people will get bored of it and they'll walk away. And I blame a lot of that on the Attitude Era that moved away from traditional style of wrestling to punch and kick fests. And that's essentially all that it was. And, you know, we kind of moved out of that a little bit with the Ruthless Aggression era. We got back to actual wrestling with Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar and Chris Benoit and those guys. Like, we got back to the actual mat tactics, which was the best thing about wrestling. It actually got me back into it, was the fact that, you know, these things looked like, You know, guys are grappling each other. It looked like wrestling. Wrestling looked like wrestling and not phony boxing or fake MMA or, you know, just constant with the brawling. Everybody can't be a brawler, right? Everybody can't be Steve Austin, all right? When you have a promotion full of Steve Austin doesn't stand out. So, you know, I liked the style of the New Generation era. It was a nice mix of everybody's kind of did their own thing. And I noticed here that in this generation, it is become a monkey see, monkey do kind of thing where, you know, big time athleticism gets over because you get to do all the flips and the crowd gets to pop and everything. But you got to build up to it. You gotta retrain that audience. And from looking at least tonight's card, you can look at it and tell that at least they're trying. You know, it's not perfect, of course, but at least they're trying. All right, so that brings us into the NXT proper. The first match on the show, JD McDonough with his giant head defeated Cameron Grimes. They did a neat little spot in this match where Cameron Grimes was trying to get out of the ring, like he stepped through the ring, and McDonough shoved him and hyperextended Cameron Grimes' knee, which was what JD McDonough was working on anyway. And I don't like JD McDonough's finisher. You know, the devil inside was what he would call it when he was Jordan Devlin, which is a side suplex. I don't necessarily like that, right? Not necessarily a fan of, you know, a cruiserweight guy having a suplex finish. You know, just don't think it's good enough, you know. McDonough wasn't done for the evening, however. All night, Brian Breaker was walking around in the parking lot, and I was deeply concerned about Brian Breaker being in that parking lot. I was sweating bullets. I was like, ooh, baby. I had a church fan. I was like, oh, Lord, please let that boy get through that parking lot. Then he went out to the ring, and he challenged JD McDonough. He talked about JD McDonough being an Irish ace, and he knows who he is. And he says that McDonough wanted his attention now that he hasn't. He's going to make him pay for putting him through a table, which, to be quite honest, I forgot that occurred. I forgot that had happened. So McDonough popped up on the screen, and he got the most empty eyes of all time. I'm not sure if he's reading or what kind of recording this was, or if this was even a recording. It doesn't seem like it was a recording, but McDonough is just staring into the camera and talking about the anatomy of the shoulder and how he knows all of these secret Chinese arts. Secret Irish arts. Anatomy. How he can perfectly tear a shoulder, and saying that, you know, while I was in NXT UK, I was studying you, and all these other people tried to beat you. I'm going to dissect you, and he knows the perfect way to tear a tendon away from the bone. And says, yeah, I know you're going to think you're going to fight through it. He says, there's only so much trauma a brain can handle before it shuts off. Like, that was kind of sinister. You know, if it wasn't coming from a human bobblehead doll, then I would actually might take that a little bit seriously. But, you know, he's got this giant head with this skinny body. And this mannequin was pretty funny. The mannequin popped me. You know, he had the mannequin with all the lines on it and everything. It popped me. I'm sorry. Brian Breaker says that you want to rip my shoulder off, I'm going to beat you over the head with it. But before that, he said that McDonough is scared of him, and if he needs some balls, he needs to take them from the mannequin. I was like, alrighty then. I like that Brian Breaker's kind of genuine tough guy. You know, like you could have put Brian Breaker in any era, and this would work. He could cut this same promo in the 80s. And it would have worked. He could have cut this same promo in the early 90s. It would have worked. It's just simple, straightforward, tough guy stuff. Get out here. I'm going to beat you to death. And bad guy's like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, nah, get out of here. I'm going to kill you. And that's kind of it. You know, the Brian Breaker character is pretty one-dimensional. He's a freight train, you know. So here's hoping that this works out a little bit better than I think. You know, because to me, I'm not so sure about this McDonough thing. And not that even I have a problem with the performer. I don't. But I'm not so sure, you know, putting him in this position right now, fresh off of NXT UK, without too much in the way of time to get him over and get over the character and how he he does, work body parts. And, if he's going to be Dr. J.D. McDonough, we probably should take our time with that and not have him go straight from rich billionaire playboy kind of character, which they even talked about during his matches, is what McDonough is, like what's the family line and all that kind of stuff. We went from that to now all of a sudden he's a doctor, he's a surgeon. And I'm just kind of like, okay, like whatever. Surgeons can be rich, I guess, but I would like for you to pick a lane and drive on it for a little while. And then if you want to merge into another lane, that would be nice. But, let's ride on one lane for a little bit and establish that. I definitely think we should have took our time and established J.D. McDonough in that way. Cameron Grimes also wasn't finished for the evening. After he lost near the end of the show, he was backstage still selling his defeat, and he had an absolute meltdown about losing because the camera folks kept trying to talk to him. He kept saying, "Not now, not now, not after I lost that North American title, not now." And then he says that he lost to Braun Breaker, and now he's lost to J.D. McDonough, not now. So then Joe Gacy, who baptized Grizzled Young Veterans earlier, let's talk about that. All right, so Grizzled Young Veterans, who not everybody's pretending they care so much about, they shaved their beards. So now they look very weird. They look very, very weird. It's almost gross. Like, James Drake's looks like Earthworm Jim. And Zach Gibson, he looks like that weird rich kid from Grandma's Boy. Sit on my face. He looks just like that fucking guy, man. It's so weird. He looks so weird. And now he's got the blue eye and everything. And then they gave them these names. These names are like random name generator names. Jagger Reed. Jagger Reed. This is one of those things where we could have just gone with Jagger and that would have been fine. Like you're not Mick Jagger, but you could have just gone with Jagger. Okay. But then again, why go with Jagger? Sounds a lot like Jacker. And Rip Fowler. I'm sorry, but that's trash. All right. That's Zach Gibson's name. That's a trash ass name. It's a trash name. Anyway, Joe Gacy says that over the last 10 weeks, these two men rebuilt themselves as pillars of inclusion. Then he baptized them in smoke, and they came back as Jagger Reed and Rip Fowler. And they will be the first, but not the last, to be unchained. I like Joe Gacy. I was a big fan of the character. Now they're just kind of going generic cult with it. They're still doing woke cult because he's still talking about inclusion and all that kind of stuff. I'm waiting for the next gear of the character. Like, you can't go from having superpowers and being psychotic in the match with Braun Breaker in that feud, and now he's just kind of normally walking around trying to recruit guys. And he tried to recruit Cameron Grimes, and Cameron Grimes, he was a little down and out, but he wasn't so down and out that he's willing to listen to Joe Gacy. So as Gacy walked up to him and started saying, "Oh, I understand. I know what it's like to be on the end of your rope. I get it." And Cameron Grimes just says, "Not now." And he leaves. So they're going to now start teasing that Cameron Grimes is going to join Joe Gacy's woke cult. The matches should be fine. It depends on how much we get out of this, but the matches should be fine. These are two guys from the independents. They have significant amounts of history. I do believe we need to do something to get one or maybe even both of them out of the NXT, because I don't know, Gacy hasn't really hit his stride in NXT. He tells me appears to me to be a guy that maybe on the main roster he'll actually get more over. Because there's always these guys on NXT who they don't do anything, they don't go anywhere, and then magically they get up on the main roster and Vince finds something about them that he thinks is interesting or whatever. And Joe Gacy seems like one of those guys where he might actually be somebody that Vince finds interesting. That he might just be like the kind of sinister heel that Vince likes, the sort of sadistic heel that Vince likes. The only problem is he's not that big, you know. He's just, and he wrestles with his shirt tucked in, which is always a no-go for me. That's always a no-go for me, dog. Whenever you Mr. Hughes, the big boss man, the Mountie, wrestling with your shirt tucked in, it's so weird. IRS, it's so weird. IRS is the number one offender of wrestling with your shirt tucked in. Constable Corbin. Oh God, what the fuck? There's nothing that triggers me when it comes to wrestling quicker than, shirt tucked in. It's awful. No way. Even if it fits the character, I don't understand why you walking around with your shirt tucked in. I don't get it. And it makes you extra sweaty too, because you're wearing an extra layer of clothes. Like IRS used to be the sweatiest motherfucker on earth. I used to watch IRS matches and be like, my God, what is going on? Where this guy looks like he stepped out of the shower after every goddamn match. No matter how long the match was. Match could be 42 seconds. He's coming out drenched. Like, I just never got it. Anyway, so JD McDonough and Braun Breaker continues to build. Now we're teasing Joe Gacy and Cameron Grimes. We revealed the Grizzly Young Veterans, and people are feeling sorry for them. I don't. What were they going to do? You want to fire them and send them to AEW, where they can hang out with Parker Boudreaux and Two Dimes, and they could be teamed up with two nobodies that Tony Khan doesn't even give a fuck about? That was so weird. Like, I know that the Parker Boudreaux thing was kind of mean. They turned him into Nails 2.0. And then he goes over to AEW and they team him up with two guys who I could be standing right next to the fucking guys and I wouldn't know who they were. I wouldn't recognize them. And I'm just kind of like, wow. Why would you do that to this kid? If you think he's a top prospect, wouldn't you put him in a top prospect position? Especially if you think WWE dropped the ball on him, which some people seem to believe. Why wouldn't you at least utilize him better than Vince did? I don't know. Maybe because he just doesn't have the experience. That kid's going to have a terrible experience in wrestling. WWE fucked him over. Now AEW's going to fuck him over. He's going to end up like AQA. He's going to end up walking away from the business. Too bad. So sad. All right. Now let's get to the women's stuff, because the women's stuff seemed to eat most of the show. There's a bunch of mini promos. Basically, all the people telling the storyline of their match, of their beef with either Toxic Attraction or somebody else that's in the Battle Royal, and basically saying that they're going to win. So you had Nikita Lyons, who talked about her unfinished business with Mandy Rose, and that she was bringing the heat. Tiffany Stratton said that she's the only woman who really deserves a title shot because she beat up on Wendy Chu, and that Wendy Chu is a loser. Indy Hartwell says that she's still searching for what's missing, but she knows she can't trust anyone, as every woman for herself in the Battle Royal anyway, and she's going to win. Lash Legend says that the top 20 women of NXT are going to be in this ring, but you're looking at the top one right now, and that she's going to make sure that Little Miss Firemaker there is not going to win either. Toxic Attraction did a promo where Mandy Rose was asked who did she think she was going to win, and Mandy Rose just randomly said Tatum Paxley, which was hilarious because I was like, Tatum Paxley? I couldn't pick that girl out of a lineup, and I've probably seen her 100 times. That Tatum Paxley, Kiana James, Ariana Grace package is throwing me for a fucking loop. Every time I see one of them, I think it's the other one. I can't get it right. They shouldn't have brought them all in at the same time. Now I'm confused. They got to bring them in one at a time, so I won't get so confused. Ivy Nile confronted them with her very little girl voice, and she also had like some temporary tattoo on her hair or something like that. I'm like, y'all are killing the Ivy Nile character. Like, there's no reason why Ivy Nile shouldn't be presented like Masha Slamovich in Impact, where she's just showing up, breaking bitches, and going, not talking. Like, you have to show character, of course, but not playing along with everybody else. And even though I did like the angle they played with her in this match, I just still think that she was as the hardened taskmaster, the bitch breaker of this thing. She's very small. That would have worked in my world. It would have worked. So I'm really not a big fan of how they are, they're doing Ivy Nile right now. Kiana James, and I only know who that is because I asked somebody, walked over and did her gimmick of statistics or analytics on Ivy Nile, and I was confused. I was like, what? Why? Why are you doing this? Alba Fire showed up with a baseball bat and said that she's going to win, of course. Then we get to the Battle Royal. So the Battle Royal is on. And the QR codes was apparently Zoe Stark, who made her return. And I was like, okay, nice. That's not too bad. I forgot all about Zoe Stark. I know it's tough for her. She's 38 years old. And I know it's very difficult to come back from like a torn knee or whatever it was at 40 or 46 or whatever she is. But it's very nice to see that she's back in action. It's a nice little. She didn't get the massive pop that you would think, because I think a lot of the crowd didn't really remember who she was. She's been gone since November. Like, she's been gone forever. I'm talking 6 months. She's been gone a long time. But it wasn't too bad. Now, before we really get into the women's battle royal, we got to talk about two different things. We got to talk about the first match. So the first match, well, not the first match on the show, I should say. The second match on the show featured Damon Kemp losing to Roderick Strong. Now, Damon Kemp lost because Tony D'Angelo jumped the Creed brothers backstage, and it was shown on the big screen. Damon Kemp was, he's a team player. So he wanted to run and help the boys. It distracted him. Roderick Strong didn't give a shit, need him in the face and pinned him. Good character stuff for Damon Kemp, makes him look like a geek, but he's buying into he's naive. He's buying into the whole Diamond Mine as a family thing. And Roderick Strong has just been an opportunist. Afterwards, Roderick Strong chastises the Creed brothers for being vulnerable and getting jumped. And then he cut into Damon Kemp for asking him what took him so long to get back there to help out with the Creeds. And he says they are the strongest family. Diamond Mine is the strongest family in NXT. And they're going to punish Tony D'Angelo. Later, the Creed brothers cut a fantastic promo. The Skinny Creed says that it's on site. They're going to drop him on sand. They're going to drop him on asphalt. They'll drop him on concrete. They're going to drop him anywhere. Roderick Strong reiterated that it's a family. And if you jump one member of Diamond Mine, you're jumping on all of them. They're the strongest family in NXT. So then the Creed brother, the skinny one, says Tony D'Angelo got two choices. He can accept the challenge, in which case he's going to beat his ass. Or the second is that he can reject the challenge, and then he's going to hunt him down and beat his ass. I was like, yeah. See, I like the Creed brothers, and you can do this promo in any generation. You could do it in the 80s. You could do it in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s. It works. It's straight up tough guy stuff. It's the kind of shit that we would have seen in territory wrestling and in wrestling in general. It's just fun, tough shit. Said with conviction, like he believed it. And he's a guy who has a legitimate background, so you can buy into it. He's a little plain, because of course the Creed brothers have been around for less than a year. But they've been very good. And this promo was very good. It's probably the best Creed brothers promo I've seen in a long time. So as we go into the women's battle royal, Elektra Lopez comes in. She's entering to Tony D'Angelo's theme song. And Tony D'Angelo is actually watching TV like a normal person, which, as normal as possible. He's not sitting down like normal people would be. He's watching TV standing up. And he says that the Creed brothers and the Diamond Mine, they have a dojo because they can't fight in the streets. And then said that they're really good at fighting in the streets, and they're going to accept the challenge of Diamond Mine. So it's going to be Tony D'Angelo's family versus the Diamond Mine next week. Very interesting. So the women's battle royal occurs, and Cora Jade is singled out of the pack. She's the one person that everybody seemingly doesn't like. And this stems from her earlier promo in the show, where she came out. She was dressed in all black. She had the women's tag team title. She said that she stabbed her best friend in the back last week, and she should have done it sooner. And that she was the face of NXT. Everybody thought she was going to be the star, and they were saying that she was going to be the breakout superstar of NXT, and she decided she was going to bring her best friend along for the ride. But then when she did that, everybody's attention started going to Roxy or Roxanne. And now Roxanne's the breakout star. And she says that winning the tag team titles was good. It was fine. And she wanted to make the tag team championships the most important titles in WWE. But then Roxy had decided to use her breakout tournament award to go for the women's title. So she's like, hey, I wanted to make these belts the most important, but you were apparently over it. And that Roxanne used her and was a selfish bitch and said that, you know, of course, her plan worked out. She attacked and admitted to attacking Roxanne in the parking lot. And said that the plan was Mandy Rose wasn't going to be prepared for her and she was going to swoop in and beat Mandy Rose for the title and everything was going to be great. But Roxanne had to continuously be selfish and utilize the contract and end up losing the match. So then she said she's going to win the Battle Royal. And that was her plan, was to win the Battle Royal. Then she took the women's tag team championship that she had and threw it in the garbage. She threw it in the garbage. She turned it into rubbish. She threw it in the trash and the internet exploded because Sasha and Naomi was right. They're doing it in NXT too. They don't care about the women's tag team championships. They don't care about tag team wrestling. And, you know, this was, I want to give, you know, credit and I want to criticize at the same time. Give Cora Jade credit first. Her throwing the belt in the garbage was a great moment for the character because the tag team is over. You know, the tag team is done. She just explained to you why the tag team can't be the tag team anymore. You know, and what a great sign of disrespect to everybody who's ever, you know, worked hard for those titles to throw them in the garbage. You know, that's her new character is, you know, she's mad disrespectful and she's jealous and she doesn't care about anything except herself. So her throwing the belt in the garbage wasn't, you know, it wasn't some meta narrative about women's wrestling. It was mostly about Cora Jade as a character not giving a shit anymore. And despite the fact that she has this thing, she doesn't care about it. It's similar to Mick Foley when he spit on the WCW tag team title and threw it down because he said that it doesn't mean as much as the pride that he lost in losing to Sabu. You know, you have to keep these things within context. All right. In context, Cora Jade cared more about her own career than she did about the tag team or the tag team championships. So, of course, she would throw the belts in the garbage. You know, she's already broken up the tag team. So, like, what is she supposed to do? Cherish the belt after she broke the tag team up already? That doesn't make much sense. So, this is just like the natural progression. And I like that. I like the disrespect of it. I like how it made people feel. It made people react. People were like, ooh. They didn't like that. You know? They was like, ooh, I don't like that. I don't like you just threw that belt in the garbage. That didn't feel too good. You know, that's a kick in the nuts for some people. Especially, you know, if you're one of those people who are all about, you know, women's wrestling and give women a chance, and you see this girl, you know, throw the belts in the garbage, you're like, whoa, what the hell? Why would you do that? You know? So I like that. Now, my criticism is that Cora Jade's promo lacked intensity. It lacked character. And what I mean by that is she came out there and there was no real connection with the source, with the material, even though what she was saying was fine. And in some ways, even true. She was pegged as the breakout star of NXT. She was, you know, for a little while at least, the top female star of NXT. At least, you know, they seem to be presenting her as that. You know, especially during the time she first started challenging Mandy Rose, it was clear that they wanted her to be the top female talent in NXT before Nikita Lyons came in and, you know, some of the other people came in and kind of swooped all of her momentum away. And there's a certain level of disdain that should come with that, of anger that should come with that. And I don't think she conveyed that very well, you know. I don't think she really performed the material very well. She's very young. She also sounded very young. Her voice is very light. It lacks oomph. It lacks maturity. It lacks gristle. You know, like something tough about it. You know, nasty even. Like, you don't need to be tough if you're a female. You could be nasty though. And it kind of lacked that too. It lacked just something stiff behind it. Her voice was very light. It was very airy. It was very weird. So I didn't really like her voice and her performance, but the content was fine. That's the best I could do right now. So the women's battle royal, to me, it was fun. You know, it was some odd spots in it. I'm going to definitely bitch about the cliches in WWE's booking because it's so glaring that you can't ignore it. So Cora Jade is the final entrant. She comes in. Everybody's pissed at her for not only what she did to Roxanne, but then her throwing the women's tag team title in the garbage. So now everybody wants to kill Cora Jade, and they allow her to slide out of the ring. So she gets out of the ring. She gets attacked by Ivy Nile, and she gets beat up outside the ring. That was the last we saw of Cora Jade for at least 15 minutes. So, of course, you know what they do. Just like somebody's going to steal somebody's pinfall in the triple threat match, you know, some heel is going to slide outside the ring and hide and then come back later. It's like, why did you have to do this cliche shit? It's so cliche. Like the entire time they're trying to build tension in the final two and the final three or whatever. I'm like, where's Cora Jade? You know, I already know she's going to come out of nowhere and slide back in the ring. I get it. And that's exactly what they did. She slid back in the ring. You know, she still lost, but to me, it seemed very anticlimactic because I'm just tired of one person disappearing into the crowd under the ring. You know, I wasn't really eliminated and then coming back in and throwing people out from behind or whatever. It's like they made her look worse from her being fresh, having no real damage to her body, and just basically run in the ring and run over the top rope. That's basically what she did. I don't even think she barely made contact with Zoe Stark, who won the match. It's very weird. I hate these cliches. Somebody needs to go into these offices and tell them, you need at least a 2-year moratorium on this finish for the Battle Royal. You need a 2-year moratorium on triple threat matches in general. But especially on this concept of, we're going to have one person hit their big move, the other person gets thrown outside the ring, you know, and then they steal the pin. Enough of that shit. They are such creatively stifled right now that if you watch more than 3 hours of WWE, you feel like you've seen a lot of these finishes before. Guy sits outside the ring, somebody pushes opponent into guys outside the ring, leading to either count out, disqualification, or roll up. You know, it's awful. Like, where's this shit coming from? It's like it's a generator back there or something, and they just keep recycling the same fucking finishes over and over and over again. And it pissed me off really bad here because I was like, man, they had something with a couple of these angles they were doing here. This battle royal had a good pace to it, you know, some good talent in it, especially near the end. It told a decent story. But then you had to throw that fucking cliche in there, and I'm just like, oh God, you know, like we don't need that. And even though it was subverted, we still didn't need it. So Zoe Stark wins, of course, as I just said. So she would be the one that's going to be wrestling Mandy Rose. Interesting. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's talk about some of the angles. So one of the angles is that Alba Fire and Lash Legend eliminated one another, which is very anticlimactic. For starters, they was out very early. Second, Alba Fire is actually getting over. So getting her out of there too early seemed weird to me. Not letting her simmer until, no pun intended, but simmer until near the end. And then maybe Lash Legend screws her out of the match. Probably would have been a little bit better for me. But this I'm going to powerbomb her. No, I'm going to do a Hurricane Rana and we both go over the top rope. I was like, didn't like it. Didn't like it at all. Wendy Chu fell on the floor, but she fell on her body pillow, so her back didn't touch the floor, and her feet didn't touch the floor. So then she was able to get back up and get back in the ring. Everybody kept yelling on commentary. She's like Kofi Kingston. She's like Kofi Kingston. I'm like, I like all those Royal Rumble Battle Royal tricks where, you know, your feet don't really touch the floor. I'm not a big fan of the whole my back is on the floor though. Like I think she was laying on a body pillow, but still, you know, the whole feet must touch the floor thing wasn't so literal. You know, it's not that literal. I liked the Tiffany Stratton hitting Wendy with a weapon and getting her over the top rope. I don't like that their feud is, you know, apparently continuing, but hopefully it doesn't continue. But I would like to see Wendy Chu go. That made my night. But I really like the Kaden Carter and Katana Chance elimination because they both were eliminated by Ivy Nile. Ivy Nile was then eliminated by somebody else. And while she was outside the ring, Ivy Nile got jumped by Kaden Carter and Katana Chance. So this is a heel thing that they're doing. They haven't officially turned heel yet. Not officially. But this is a heel tactic. And so Tatum Paxley, who has been training and friendly with Ivy Nile, she does a plancha over the top rope, eliminating herself in order to save Ivy Nile. And I was like, I like that. You know, like, of course, it counters what, you know, some people were really triggered about earlier. You know, let's talk about this now. So Zion Quinn, he cut a promo right after Cora Jade threw the belt in the garbage. And he says that this is not a we business. You know, meaning, you know, this is all about individuals, all about individual people. It's not about tag teams or factions or anything. And a lot of people, you know, because it's all about meta narratives, they can't just accept, you know, what characters are saying on the show. Are saying, well, that's how WWE feels about tag teams. They just want to break them all up and they hate tag team wrestling and all this kind of stuff. It's like, well, that's one way of looking at things. Another way is that Zion Quinn is an absolutely selfish character. And him saying that, you know, it's not about teams. It's not about friends. It's about what you can get out of the business for yourself. You know, it's that's him saying this. It doesn't have to be some kind of meta narrative applied to it, but it kind of counters that when you have Tatum Paxley sacrifice her individual chance to be women's champion to help her friend she's been training with and spending time with for the last several weeks. You know, you get to see that not everybody feels the same way. You know, of course, there was no meta narrative that to talk about here that how, you know, friendship is more important than individual success. You know, you would think that would be the meta narrative you would pull from this, especially from this angle, but it wasn't. It was how she was stupid or whatever for not trying to win the match. It's like, well, she was trying to win the match, but she didn't want to watch her friend get beat up and injured either. You know, and I can appreciate that. You know, there'll be other opportunities to be a number one contender. It was a battle royal anyway. You know, so I like that angle. I enjoyed that from a character perspective. So the final four became Nikita Lyons, Tiffany Stratton, Zoe Stark, and Kiana James. Apparently WWE or NXT likes Kiana James. They're big fans. Because she not only got a big surprise win last time I saw her, but now she's in the final four of this match. Well, technically she's one of the final five. So it came down to Tiffany Stratton and Zoe Stark after Nikita Lyons was eliminated by Tiffany Stratton. And in a moment that should have been like Triple H getting eliminated in Royal Rumble 2006, where, man, let me tell you, I don't think a single person has ever been eliminated to such a massive eruption of positive energy as when Triple H was tossed out at WrestleMania Royal Rumble 2006. That place went ape shit when Triple H got eliminated. That's the reaction you should want every time somebody gets thrown out. Now, it can't be everybody, of course, but people knew that he was going to be the guy that was going to challenge John Cena. So they kind of figured it was a foregone conclusion he was going to win the Royal Rumble. And him losing was like, oh, let's go. You know, people were excited about that, you know. So the Nikita Lyons getting eliminated here had that same opportunity to have that same reaction, but they kind of moved on from it very quickly. It would seem like as an upset and was great for the Tiffany Stratton character and something that, she could always hang her hat on later, but it wasn't lingered on. We didn't get really a chance for Nikita Lyons to sell it and be disappointed in herself or, whatever. We didn't really get a chance to sell it because the match it just kept moving. They definitely needed to slow down and let this moment sink in because Nikita Lyons was the eyes-on favorite to be the one that goes against Mandy Rose. So obviously Zoe Stark throws Tiffany Stratton out. Then Cora Jade tries her gambit and she loses. So now Zoe Stark and Mandy Rose is the match. And people like Zoe Stark. She spent a couple of years working the independents. She worked, I think, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I think she did some NWA stuff too before she came to WWE. She's very seasoned. She reminds me a lot of Serena Deeb, and so much that she looks so much older than she really is. Like, I think somebody just told me, obviously I knew it, that she was only like 25 or 26. But she looks 50. Like, she just looks old. She just has an old look to her. But I think she's a good worker. She's kind of bland. They haven't spent a lot of time defining who and what Zoe Stark is. And they have a new opportunity for that now. So they give her the big return, comeback win. It makes sense because Toxic Attraction are the ones who broke her leg in the first place. So there's good story there. So you got a return, you got a good story from the links between these two entities already. Zoe Stark is a pure baby face, so this works. Only problem is Zoe Stark, I'm not so sure about her promo skill. How good is she going to be on the microphone? We'll solve that QR code when we get to that point. But we know that she's a good worker, and that if Mandy Rose gets lost in the ring, Zoe Stark will be able to help her. I can tell you that much. All right, so I liked the match. I think the Battle Royal was fine. The only problem I had was, the cliche Cora Jade stuff. All right, so I lost place of what I covered so much ground already. Let's try to go a little bit faster. I forgot to mention this when I was talking about the Creed brothers. Daniel Cormier apparently was contacted by WWE because they wanted him to do something with the Creed brothers. I think that would be great. I think they're going to need a new coach. They're going to need a new coach when they break up from Roderick Strong. And I think bringing in Daniel Cormier could be fun. He's a big wrestling fan. He tweets about wrestling and stuff all the time. I know he watches the product. He would be good. Everybody knows who he is because of his UFC career. I don't think he should come in to wrestle or anything. But bringing him in as a coach could be fun. That could be real fun. That should be the limit of it. Maybe he should take a bump or two, bump somebody else every once in a while. But bringing him in as a babyface coach similar to Arn Anderson, I like that. I think that would be great. And I think the Creed brothers need that. You need a coach. They're sportsmen. They're athletes. They need a coach. So that works for me. Back to Zion Quinn. Zion Quinn basically talked about Apollo Crews, who I'm guessing the name is just Apollo now. I haven't seen it official yet, but I think they dropped Crews from Apollo's name. I think it's not guaranteed yet, so I'm not going to blow my gasket. Plus, I don't think it was Crews. I like Apollo Crews only because I'm used to it, and I don't like unnecessary changes. But I think WWE was just probably been itching to get rid of that damn Apollo Crews name anyway. But Zion Quinn says Apollo can see into the future, but didn't see him coming. And Apollo Crews couldn't hang in the big leagues. That's why he's back in NXT. I was like, oh boy. That's a good way to shit on NXT, isn't it? You can handle the big leagues. Well, they know what they are now, so I guess that's fine. Pretty Deadly were dressed up as cowboys, like literal cows. Like they were wearing cow spotted tights. It was so awkward and ridiculous. And Fallon Henley, she riled her boys up and one of them focused, and they're gonna give Pretty Deadly a country ass whooping, and then they proceed to do so. The NXT Tag Team Championships, NXT UK Tag Team Championships. Briggs and Justin defeat Pretty Deadly. There was a fiasco with the tag belts where Pretty Deadly was trying to cheat, but unfortunately they got thwarted by Fallon Henley, and Briggs and Jensen win. It was a meh match. I don't like Briggs and Jensen. I don't like them. They suck. They suck. I mean, this match went a long way in making them look like legitimate champions, but I don't like those guys. They suck. Sorry, fellas. Who else sucks? Wesley, he sucks. He says that he's been finding roadblocks on his journey to find himself, and that Grayson Waller, if he was a 1/10 as good as he thought he was, he wouldn't have been able to distract Grayson Waller last week, and he'd be the North American champion. So he says he's going to take out Grayson Waller first, and then he's going to take out Trick Williams. Which brings us to the barbershop, which is one of my favorite segments of the evening, where Trick and Mello are in the barbershop, and Trick is doing Trick things. He's talking about how a girl named Mercedes was driving a Lexus, and a girl named Lexus was driving a Mercedes, and he was confused the whole time. They started running down people who said they want to shout at the A champion. Mello says he's tired of hearing about Solo Sikoa, and Von Wagner says that it's his world and we're all just living in it. And Mello says that Von Wagner's living in the Mello-verse, which I think that's fantastic. You put that on a t-shirt. The Mello-verse, that should be on a t-shirt. Somebody got a text saying that Wesley was talking trash about Trick on TV right now, and Trick says that he was obsessed with him, and that he needs to focus because he's going to get beat up by Grayson Waller next week, and he's going to be out there to watch. And then they all kind of made fun of Trick Williams not having an appropriate lineup, which was still funny. I love Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes. They fucking rule. They rule ass, man. They rule hard. I've seen some of the house show results, and I think they are going to push Wesley towards Carmelo Hayes as his opponent going to the future. Because I think they've been working triple threat matches. I forget with who else, but I'm pretty sure Wesley was one of the two guys that was in the triple threat match, and he seemed like one of the dudes that they kind of want to put in that role. And to be quite honest, I think for pure match quality, Wesley versus Carmelo Hayes can't be topped. That would be a great match. My problem is that Carmelo Hayes is going to be doing the bulk of the work from character and promo perspective because Wesley is empty in both regards. You know, I can't believe it's still taking him so long to find himself. It's like, fuck, look in the mirror. Ta-da, you did it. You know, like, is this Pokemon Go? Like, are you a vampire? Do you not have a reflection in the mirror? How hard does it take for you to find yourself? Anyway, Solo Sikoa, he was walking around backstage, and they were like, what you going to SmackDown for? And he's like, just show some love. I'm like, show some love. And then as he was walking, I said to myself, wait a minute. Is he in a parking lot? Did NXT trade their parking lot for SmackDown for a draft pick to be named later? Because Von Wagner came out of nowhere and beat up Solo Sikoa in the SmackDown parking lot. Like, oh my God, what the fuck? Why are they beating these guys? Why are these guys getting beat up in these parking lots? SmackDown, now they need to put like chain link fence up or something to keep out all these NXT ragamuffins who just insist on ruining every parking lot they step into. Like, do they treat Walmart parking lots like this? Do they act like this when they go to Meijer or something too? They just start fighting people in parking lots. What is it about NXT? Where anytime somebody's in a parking lot of any type, they just get mad. It's time to have an NXT moment. You know, it's like, fuck it, fight forever in the parking lot. Like, why? Come on, man. Cut him some slack. I have no interest in seeing Von Wagner. None whatsoever. Axiom, he made his debut. It's a kid in the mask, like everybody thought. His opponent was Dante Chen. So they started him off wrong. Because they put him in the ring with another babyface. And Dante Chen, even though Dante Chen is not over, he's just basically a body in the ring. They did a lot of chain wrestling. There was a lot of basic lucha libre stuff in here. Nothing too exciting. And the Axiom mask is very bland. It's like they brought up bland. How do you say bland in Lucha Libre? Oh, I'm sorry, Spanish. What the fuck was I thinking? How do you say it in Lucha Libre? I think I'm dehydrated. It's so fucking hot in Detroit. I got the fans off so I can record without hearing the fans in the background. So I'm getting kind of dehydrated. How do you speak Lucha? Anyway, he was a very plain Lucha Libre and a plain superhero. That his tagline is, "It's not about me, it's about everyone else." Look, man, people don't understand superheroes, okay? You can't just watch Marvel movies, put on tights, and then say I'm a superhero. What makes superheroes work is that mesh of reality and fantasy, right? Like, what makes Spider-Man work isn't that he's a guy in a spider outfit wearing a mask doing all that cool stuff. It's that it's a high school student who's not very cool. He's always being bullied and picked on, but he has these secret powers. You know, like he could beat up his bullies if he wanted to, but he's showing restraint by not doing it. You know, the same thing with Superman. Like, Superman is Superman 100% of the time. But when he's Clark Kent, he's his version of what a human being is. He's fallible. He's, you know, kind of boring. You know, he's easy to look over. He disappears in a crowd. But when he's Superman, he's hyper confident, hyper competent. You know, he's a beacon of justice and all this sort of stuff. Like, that's what makes superheroes work. What makes superheroes work is that mesh of reality and fiction. That part that we are able to buy into is the human part. And then because we care about the human part, we care about the hero part too. Because we know that these two things exist at the same time. You know, that if Spider-Man is killed by the Green Goblin, then Mary Jane loses her husband, even if she doesn't know that her husband is Spider-Man. You know, like, that matters. You know, Spider-Man not being able to make dinner, you know, because he has to go out and stop Dr. Octopus is an important character beat. It's an important character moment. That's what makes superheroes work. You can't just do masks or capes or whatever the fuck and then just say, I'm a superhero. It's like, no, you're a fucking moron playing superhero. You look like a fucking goof. All right, Axiom. I don't want to shit on the guy too much, but introduce us to your civilian identity first and what your civilian identity cares about. And then introduce the hero part and then show us how the hero part makes what you do in your civilian life, puts that in jeopardy. And then we can buy into the whole superhero aspect of who you are and what you're doing. And then also need to fight crime. You know what I'm saying? You dig? Fight some crime. Axiom needs to be shaded in the dark, patrolling the goddamn NXT parking lot. That's what he needs to be doing. Like, for real. He would be over with me if he had like an Axiom signal, and every time some jobber is getting beat up in the NXT parking lot, which probably happens all the fucking time, he could pop up out of nowhere and save them. Like, I would be like, finally, somebody is going to do something about this fucking NXT parking lot. You know, all these double parked assholes are in the parking lot. And all these people who insist on jumping folks in the parking lot. You know, trying to get over with me. You know, that motherfucker needs to be like Crime Alley. You need to be there all the time. You also need an origin story to be a good hero. Why are you doing this? What is this for? You know, it's one thing to tell us I'm a superhero. Like, okay, but why? You know, when they was doing this whole thing with Zia Lee and they were doing the Protector, I'm work to protect, which failed miserably. I can't believe they did that. But they gave her an origin story. And we saw why this was so important to Zia Lee. And that was supposed to help us connect with the character. Of course, they cut the legs out from under it before it really happened. But, you know, that's part of it too. You need to have an origin story. You need to have villains to fight. You need to have motivations. You need to have a civilian identity. There's all these different things you need to have in order for a superhero character to work. And WWE wants to have superhero cachet without putting in the effort. No. I reject your deposit. Let's move on. What else do I need to say? Giovanni Vinci, he was backstage. He refused to take a picture with a fan, but got upset as Chase U, who is back from London already, and they were out here blocking traffic, so he can't move his car because Chase U is out there with the bus. And I was like, oh no, they're in the parking lot. Oh no. Giovanni Vinci about to lose his mind in this parking lot. Oh no. But thankfully he kept his head on the square, and he didn't do anything to Chase U, at least not yet. We're gonna find out next week. He buried them under the truck or some shit. He ran them over with his car or set the bus on fire or some other kind of chaotic nightmare scenario that he's doing because it's NXT and it's the parking lot. But ultimately, I really enjoyed NXT this week. I thought it was fun. It went by pretty fast. There were some things I didn't like about it, clearly, as I discussed here. But I think mostly it was good. But let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Tell me what's worse than learning all that you led to believe was all horse crap. They just